2007, Mr. Livingston pled guilty to the murder of Mrs. Garcia, the victim, and was assessed a 23-year sentence. Judge Lemus at that time gave him 60 days to get his affairs in order. He was supposed to turn himself in April of 2007, and he failed to turn himself in. Since that time, he's been a fugitive, and there's been a warrant for his arrest since that time. For whatever reason, because of the turn of events of the prior administration, his search kind of went cold and just sat basically cold until I came on in January of 2013. At that time, after meeting with Mrs. Garcia and listening to his story of how they were victimized twice, first by Mr. Livingston's murder of their daughter, and then by the respective state officials that, based on greed, took the action that they did that permitted Mr. Livingston to flee. I committed to her all my resources and made it one of the priorities of my administration to capture Amit Livingston and bring him to justice for two reasons. Number one, to bring justice to the Garcia family, obviously first and foremost. And then secondly, I felt that it was important to the office of the DA's office here in Cameron County and to the citizens of Cameron County, because as y'all did come to was that case was the center point, the flash point for the events that that brought down the DA and the district judge and other lawyers. So since that time, I have dedicated a lot of my efforts and resources to bring Mr. Livingston to justice. That process has been broken down basically into three components as I saw it. Number one, his capture, which is obviously the most critical one. We had learned through intelligence that he had returned to India, and we regrouped and put all our resources together, working with the federal government, specifically the U.S. Marshals, and again I want to thank for their efforts. The U.S. Marshals enlisted help on the ground, confidential sources in India, that eventually led to his capture in May of this year. This is the most critical one. The second component, just as equally important and critical, was his extradition. The U.S. does have a treaty with India on extradition, but that doesn't really, mean anything. I mean, it does count, but it doesn't mean that he's automatically going to be extradited. There has to be certain procedures that have to be followed, and there's a ruling that has to be made by an appropriate court to a certain extent granting the extradition. So we refocused our efforts by working with Mr. Dan Steigel out of D.C., who is the United States Attorney General in charge of extraditions, and providing him all the documents that he needed, voluminous documents, as you know, by even visiting with him this past summer, September, and imploring on him that even though all extraditions are important to him, that this one was very important to the state of Texas and the people of Cameron County. We did that. He advised me a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Steigel did, that he was going to be meeting with his counterparts from India. By that I understood to be the equivalent of Assistant Attorney Generals in India. Based on the result today, I can only conclude that the meetings went very well. In fact, when he called me after, said it went very well. They've agreed to expedite and to prioritize our case, your case. And today I'm very happy to say that the second component has been accomplished, and we are, another step closer to eventually getting Mr. Livingston back on U.S. soil and back in Texas soil in custody where he belongs. What happened today was that the appropriate magistrate judge in India ruled that he was extraditable. The ruling was helped by the fact that Mr. Livingston does want to come back to the United States, and we were not surprised by that expression. We felt at some point that he would, just basically decide that it's between being in custody in India and being in custody in the U.S. Indian jails are, if people think American jails are bad, Indian jails are, bad times 10. So that certainly helped the process. So needless to say, and eventually today, the court ruled that he is extraditable. And so now we move on to the third component, which is the actual physical transfer of Mr. Livingston back to the United States. The U.S. Marshals will be in charge of that. And again, I'm very happy for the ruling today. I'm very thankful for the Indian officials who saw fit to do the right thing. So we're 2 steps closer now you know, to doing, accomplishing our two objectives to the Garcia family, and to once and for all closing this terrible chapter that Cameron County had to undergo as a result of the shenanigans by the officials that led to his opportunity to flee justice. So now we move on to the third part, which I'm still cautiously, you know, optimistic. You know, I won't be totally happy until I'm told that the plane has landed and it's in the U.S. in Texas somewhere with him in custody. But it is very exciting news. The first person that I did get a hold of this morning was Mrs. Garcia, and that's the picture I have of her and her daughter. I hang that in my office to constantly remind me daily what has to be done. So we're very happy for her. She was very elated, and we're moving on to the third component, which will be to physically get him back here in the state of Texas, where he can begin a sentence, and once and for all, the Garcias can, you know, nobody ever moves on from a murder such as this, but at least know that justice has been served, and hopefully for the people of Cameron County to finally, once and for all, close this chapter, and in this case, that served to, you know, did what it did for the officials here in Cameron County.